Okay, this morning I want to share with you from the book of Judges. As you know, we are going through the book of Judges, and we are in Judges chapter 4. Permit me to read again for you a few verses.
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, thank you so much. Nehemiah, thank you. Nehemiah. Reading from Nehemiah, it says, "But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the repairing of the walls of Jerusalem was going forward and that the breaches were beginning to be closed, they were angry, and they plotted to come together and fight against Jerusalem. And we prayed to our God and set a guard as a protection against them day and night. And in Judah it was said, the strength of those who bear the burden is failing. There is too much rubble. By ourselves, we will not be able to rebuild the wall. And our enemy said, they will not know or see till we come upon them and kill them and stop the work." And at that time, Jews who lived near them came from all directions and said to us 10 times, "You must return to us." Nehemiah was given a mission by God. You see, God planted in his heart that he should go back and rebuild the wall. And you would say, well, why will God put in Nehemiah's heart the need to rebuild the wall, knowing that obstacles and objections and criticisms and people who meant to do him evil lay ahead? Why would God put a burden in your heart so that you can encounter hardships? Well, Nehemiah's opponents was from outside. The Bible said that he had on one hand he had Sanballat and Tobiah. They colluded together with the Ammonites, the Arabs, and the Ashdodites. So to the north, you had Tobiah and the Ammonites. Okay? Sorry, to the north, you had Sanballat and the Samaritans. To the south, you had the Ashdodites. To the east, you had Tobiah and the Ammonites. And then to the west, you had the Arabs. So on every side, north, Sanballat, east, Tobiah, south, Arabs, west, Ashdodites. On every side, Nehemiah was surrounded by enemies. It's as if there was no breathing space. And to make matters worse, he was not just confronted with enemies outside, he was confronted with enemies inside. So you would think, that yes, enemies on the outside is all right. But when you get opposition from your very own people, in verse 10, the Bible said, in Judah it was said, the strength of those who bear the burden is failing. There is too much rubble. by ourselves, we will not be able to rebuild. In other words, Nehemiah was told, we can't do it. And they didn't just say it once, they said it 10 times. Verse 12. Again and again, they said to him, you must return to us. Stop this work. So you are confronted with menacing and bad-minded neighbors like Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, and then a people who was discouraged. What do you do when all around you is negative? And even within the church of God, among your own church brethren, what you get is no different from what you get on the outside. What do you do when God puts a burden on your heart and you cannot see or hear any encouraging word from anybody? Well, if Nehemiah was not called by God to do this, he would have sent in his retirement, resigned his resignation. Nehemiah would have said, this work is too much for me. And he was right. This work was too much for Nehemiah because his enemies was threatening. They will come and not just stop the work, but kill him. And his people, the Jewish people, was saying, you better believe them. If they say they're going to kill you, they will kill you. So why not give in to what you're hearing? Why not? Let's just stop this. Do something else. But folks, I want to say to somebody this morning that if God puts a burden on your heart, you gotta depend on God to keep you motivated. I'm not saying you should not seek motivation from others, in as much as you should seek motivation from others. Don't rely on that. Your motivator cannot be those you work with. Sometimes people may acknowledge the work you do, sometimes they may not. But if God calls you to do a work, you ought to depend on him to keep you going. And that's why Nehemiah, amidst all that was happening, verse 9 says, he prayed. He prayed and he set the people on guard. In other words, don't just pray, but be vigilant. Don't trust in anyone. Trust in God. You may say, well, why did Nehemiah pray and set up people at watch? Because you don't trust people. In verse 13, the Bible said, in the lowest parts of the space behind the wall, he stationed the people by their clans with their swords, their spears, and their bows. Because the enemy comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. Nehemiah was not ignorant to the fact that even while you pray, God expects us to be vigilant and to do what we can. However, he was not naive. He knew that his defense was not in the spears and the swords and the bows, because in verse 14 of chapter 4, he said to the people, do not be afraid. Remember the Lord. He is great and awesome. And fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. Nehemiah understood that the strength to defeat his enemies and the strength to rebuild the walls comes from God. He understood that if God puts a work in your heart to do, he will send the right people to defend it. He will send the right people around you. You see, brethren, too many times we forget that the Lord is able to fight for you. Too many times we forget that the God we serve is the commander of the heavenly hosts. When that mighty angel came to Joshua, he said to Joshua, when Joshua asked him, "Who are you?" he said, "I am the commander." God has an army that he is in charge of. And Nehemiah, although he was faced with enemies on every side, from outside and within, he had God on his side. And God will always send a few people in your corner, a few people who is willing to stand with you through the thick and the thin, a few people who will be in your corner. You won't have much people in your corner, but God will always send when you think you are going to be alone, like Elijah. God will always send a few people like Nehemiah who will stand with you through the strength and the power of God. And so Nehemiah understood that when God is for you, do not be afraid. But you got to be convinced that God is with you. You got to be assured that God has sent you. If you are not assured of that, people will make you get scared. They will threaten to write. They will threaten to remove support. Don't be afraid. Listen, brethren, when God has called you, folks can say what they want, do what they want, when they want, how they want. They cannot stop what God is doing. In fact, there be some people who will try to undermine you, derail you. They will try to malign you, criticize you. But if God is for you, if what you are doing is of God, it will stand the test of time. That's why you got to make sure that it is God who calls you. It is God who plants it in your heart. And let me tell you this, brethren. If Nehemiah was not sure it was God, he would have packed his bag up and go back over to Persia to do his jolly good job over in the king's palace. But he knew it was God. What is sad sometimes when God puts a burden on your heart for the very people that you are helping, they are the ones who fight you the most. But brethren, like Nehemiah, you got to be encouraged in the Lord. You got to be encouraged. Too much people quit when the going gets rough and the tough gets going. Too many people throw in the towels because someone failed to support you. Somebody criticized you. Somebody went and did something foolish behind your back. Too many people believe that the success of your work is in the hands of a committee, of a board, of a few individuals. I wanted to know this morning that if God has called you, the success of your work is in the hands of God, not in the hands of man. And that's why Nehemiah said, don't be afraid. Do the best you can. how you can, but be assured that the God you serve is great. He is great and he's awesome. I tell someone this morning, we are serving a great God. I prefer to focus on the greatness of God. When I focus on God, my problems appear small. When I focus on my problems, God appears small. I want you to focus on God this morning, his greatness, his power. And when you do that, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. I know there is someone on the line this morning who has already decided to give up because of a little problem, a little criticism. Somebody did you something and you want to already quit. I want to say to you this morning, if God called you to it, you can't quit. And you know when God has called you, nothing moves you. You are driven by something deeper, something much more profound than a vote on a committee. Now, if a committee appointed you, then you will quit when you are not appointed. But if God calls you, you don't need an appointment. You don't need an office in the church. When God calls you, he propels you to do his work. And that's why this morning, your work begins with God's call on your life. Has God called you? Whatever you are doing, did God put it in your heart for you to do? If he did, go forward. He will sustain you. He will make a way for you. He will provide for you. He will, because it is God's work. It is not your work. It is his work. And that's why Nehemiah, despite the opposition from every side, from the north, the south, the east, the west, and from his very own people, he encouraged himself in the Lord. He encouraged himself in the Lord. He strengthened himself in the Lord. I want to encourage someone this morning. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep pressing on. Because if the Lord is on your side, everything is going to be all right. I have come to the conclusion in life that God does not only call you to do a work for him, he calls you to do a work in you. When you are facing problems, the problem is not the problem. The problem is what God is doing in you. And oftentimes he uses problems to refine us and to build us and to make us more like him. I want to say to someone this morning, ensure that God has called you. Ensure that what you are doing has the blessing of God. And once it does, go forward in faith, in confidence, and in the strength of God, knowing that if God is for you, nothing can stop the move of God. Father in heaven this morning, Lord, there is someone on this line who you have given a work to do, but there is so much problem they're going through. No support from the people they should be getting support from. And sometimes the human thing to do is to throw in the towel. But I pray this morning, oh God, that you will encourage whoever it is on this line. Encourage them in the Lord, that even if they're not getting no support, not even from within, help them to be encouraged in the Lord and to know that whatever you cause, you enables. Whoever you commission, you make a provision for. And so today, like Nehemiah, may we not be afraid of the terror by night, of the arrows that fly by day. May we know that the Lord will fight for us, with us, and through us, we pray. In Jesus' name.